Go. Hi, I'm Harry Siemens. I'm with the Manitoba Aerial Applicators Association, and today we're visiting with John Bagley. He also owns and operates Westman Aerial Spraying, and we're talking about a lot of things that have to do with aerial application, crop protection products, and exactly how these guys do it day after day, hour after hour, minute after minute. Great to have you with us. Today I'm visiting with John, and John, tell me about the whole aspect of Manitoba Aerial Applicators Association and your involvement in it and what they do.
Well, at this point in my life, I'm just a member of the Aerial Applicators Association. I have served as past president and president of our Canadian Aerial Applicators Association, but I did my time, and now I'm an active supporter and member of the association. All of the members come together as a group to deal with issues regarding aerial application in Manitoba, and then of course our national body issues across Canada. We try to promote safety and understanding of our industry. We deal with issues, regulatory issues, and safety issues regarding accidents and pilot training and advertising of our industry to put a positive spin on our industry. We feel that we do a lot for Canadian agriculture and support the production of food in Canada. So, and in Manitoba in particular, we have a large very intensive crop plan with a lot of farmers, a lot of potatoes in Manitoba. So aerial application is a very necessary part of agriculture in Manitoba for sure.
We'll get into that a bit more, but first of all, tell me about your business. I know I drive along #1 highway and I've seen it for years. I've known you in the past when I did some work with the association, but tell me about your business. I look outside and I see the plane standing there. It's a little windy today, but tell me.
Well, we started the business in 1989. We're just coming up on 30 years in business. Time flies by, no pun intended. We started off in a small grass strip that I rented from a local farmer friend. And then in 1993, we moved to this site. And it was, I guess, my mission statement and my goal to create a site that was of value to the local community and the local farmers. So over the years, we've just continually built this site since 1993. A few years ago, I sold the retail portion of the site, but at that time, we had full line of crop care products. We developed a seed treatment and seed sales business, certified seed, full liquid and dry fertilizer plant, ground sprayers, floaters. We sold bins and equipment. We employed up to 60 people locally in this area, and always felt that we would, whenever we could, we bought locally and tried to inject money into the local economy. So I was happy to sell that part of the business in 2014, and now I've just returned to my roots with the airplanes. That's all we do right now, and at this point we have 6 spray airplanes and 6 pilots, and a couple years ago we added a helicopter to our fleet so that we could do some specialized spraying in certain areas, and I'm enjoying it. I've been an ag pilot for almost 30 years now. Wow. 35 years.
Sounds exciting. Yeah. Tell me, you made reference to how the ag industry, and I've been involved in the ag industry for 47 years as a journalist. Before that I farmed for 10 years. But why is it so vital that we have that very good, successful aerial applicators business for the farmers?
For some farmers, it's a service that they call on when we have an insect outbreak or something that's out of the norm for them. But for many farmers, it's a part of their annual
budget, so to speak, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
They have there's for instance a new thing that that's just come into the marketplace over the last few years is shatter resistant canola, so you don't have to swath your canola. So that has to be sprayed to help dry it down before they go in and straight cut it. It's a perfect application for aerial applicators because we can go in and not make any tracks in the field. We don't disrupt the pods as we fly over it, and get it to the point where the farmers can harvest it. Potato farmers are a perfect example where we do a lot of work for those farmers because there's been lots of studies where, you know, as you move from one field to the next with a ground sprayer, you can move disease from one field to the next. Wheel compaction is a big issue in potatoes for potato quality and so on. So the airplanes are a perfect vehicle for that also. We're not out to compete with the ground sprayers, but we complement the ground sprayers in many ways. Our business has changed drastically over the last 30 years. You know, when I started, we would do probably half of our season would be herbicides, and the rest would be insecticides or fungicides. Now, I would say 95% of our business is fungicides on wheat and canola to increase yields. There's some very good products out there that help the farmer get their yields up so that they're more productive, and we can help produce more food for the world.
Totally, and that's awesome because agriculture, as a veteran farm broadcaster told me years ago, he says it's really the basic industry, you know, because it's renewable resource. You can keep doing it time and time again, right? Just as we stopped over here at another place, we visited with a young fella, and I told him we were coming to visit you. And guess what he did? He pulled out his iPhone and showed us a picture of an aerial applicator plane that he had just taken this morning. I think that's probably, and I remember driving into Winnipeg a few days ago, and you know, there I saw the guy. It's exciting, and yet these guys are doing a job just like everybody else, except there's a lot more into it.
Yes. Well, you know, people that aren't familiar with aerial application think that we're maybe risk takers. That's absolutely not the case. This job is like any job that you're not, if you weren't used to it, it would seem that you could get injured in the job. And I'm not going to say that we're accident free by any stretch. But our accident rates are very, very low. And we take a lot of precautions. We've got systems set up. Transport Canada obviously wants us to have safety systems in our company. I guess, sorry.
Just because, no, obviously they want to make sure you're safe because that's their job.
Yes, so a lot of our safety procedures that we have in the company, we talk about at our aerial applicators meetings, and we've developed systems that we put into place that try to minimize any risk that we're going to take. When somebody's driving down the road and they see us spraying, sometimes they think, you know, those guys are just being way too aggressive. The airplanes are very, very safe nowadays. Most of our airplanes for established aerial applicators are turbine powered, which are extremely reliable engines compared to what we used to fly with. We have to do regular maintenance. All of the pilots, by the time you get into a turbine powered airplane, are very experienced. And although it may look exciting, to us it's a job, and we take it seriously. We are all family members, family people. We have families to come home to, and we try to do our job safely and make sure that we don't cause any problems in the process.
I guess there's always the whole aspect that I remember years ago, at least, the aspect of not so much risk of accident, but risk of chemical drifting and those kinds of things, and even in some cases, and I'm sure you've got safety things to follow, but where maybe somebody had, and that can happen to a ground sprayer too, right? I'm not singling out an area applicator, but obviously that's something that you're always conscious of.
Yes. There's been a lot of advancement over the years with nozzle technology to try and make sure that we have the proper droplet size so that the chances of off-target drift are minimized. Obviously, we spray in maybe different conditions than a lot of ground sprayers would. We're very conscious of the wind. We notice it as soon as we get in the air because we're flying in the air mass. So as soon as it starts to get bumpy, we know it's starting to get windy. We shut down earlier than maybe a ground sprayer would. By the time it gets to be 15 kilometers or somewhere in that range, we're looking at shutting down for the morning and then waiting until the evening when the wind dies down again, and then we'll start up again. So we have early mornings, late evenings, we do a lot of our spraying. We have vehicles on our aircraft or equipment on our aircraft that allows us to measure how far product is going to drift. And we have different devices, other devices on our aircraft that allow us to minimize how we trim up a field so that we don't have any off-target drift. So there's lots of different things that are available now that weren't 30 years ago.
It's to me it is exciting because I've had a chance to work alongside with people like yourself and other people, and I also remember a fellow from Winkler. His name was Ben Weeb. Ben was an aerial applicator, and he was a very good friend of mine. But I also flew with him commercially during flood times, and this guy didn't take any chances. I mean, he was an instructor, he was a flyer, he was an aerial applicator. He was one of the first guys in our area. He's since passed on, and at the same time, though, when I flew with him, I felt, boy, this guy is just, I wish he'd take a few more chances, but no, he flew by the book.
Absolutely. We do the same thing here. We have 6 airplanes working out of here pretty well every day at our strip. We probably have more aircraft movements out of our strip here than Brandon does at the city airport during the summertime. So we follow the same procedures when we come into land as we would at Brandon. We just don't have an air traffic controller, but we call as we enter the circuit, and we make sure that everybody knows where we are. And you know, there's other aerial applicators that work in this area. We've set up communications with them so we can know where they are and so on. So we're very careful. We now have the benefit of GPS technology, which is just phenomenal for our industry. It allows us to navigate directly to a field rather than flying to an elevator and then counting miles like we used to do. So it's, you know, the chances of getting to the wrong field have been eliminated. We know prior to going out there, we have a system that we utilize on our computer that allows us to put in all of the organic farms that we know of from the Organic Growers Association. So we know when we're going to be spraying next to an organic farm. We know where all the towers are. We also have what we call our customer request list, where people that don't want us flying over their yard or don't like the noise of the airplane in the morning because they're shift workers and that type of thing, we put all of those yard sites into our computer, so when we're going out to the field, we know to avoid those areas. In fact, we just bought a couple of new airplanes last year and this year that are kind of the whisper quiet airplanes. So they've got extra blades on the propeller, so that and really they have extra power too. But we didn't buy them for that. We bought them because we have to interface with a lot of urban people nowadays. And a lot of urban people that work in the cities are moving outside the city into the countryside next to Brandon or other towns. And we're trying to be respectful of that. Even though we do still have to carry out our jobs, we try to respect their privacy and their right to have a quiet existence, I guess. So we've got these airplanes that are almost totally quiet. They're as quiet as a truck going down the road.
Is that right?
So we're pretty pleased with that, and I've had a compliment from one customer that that didn't like the noise in the past, and she said, "I just can't believe how quiet that airplane is." So,
I live in Winkler. I live not far from the airport there, and I hear the noise. Especially, I'm an early riser.
Yes.
I hear the planes warming up and taking off. You know, you can hear that. You always know when it's an aerial applicator taking off, right? So they start pretty early. Tell me, John, as a pilot, what do you do when you get ready for the next day of spraying?
Okay, well, I get up at 3:30 in the morning every day, check the wind, make sure that it's good to go, and then I start calling the pilots and the ground crew. My wife calls the ground crew, and I call the pilots, and we try to get here by about 4:30, and then by 5 o'clock we're in the air. That's during July. As the season goes on, then of course daylight comes a little bit later in the morning, but by 5 we can see to get when we get to the field and start to spray. So then we spray until the wind starts to pick up. By about 11 o'clock quite often, or noon, we have to shut down. Some days it's earlier, and then the pilots go home and have a rest. And then by about 4 o'clock, a new weather forecast comes out. I look at it, I make a determination whether they should start heading in or not, and then we spray for the evening if it's good. By about 10 o'clock, we're back home again, getting ready to get up in a few hours to come back at it. Yeah.
So you have different seasons,
yeah.
Obviously, right? I mean, you have, so tell me about take me through the seasons.
We have, are you talking about the
the different crops
season?
that you'd spray and use different products for?
Yes, okay. So in the spring, we start off, quite often there'll be some insects that maybe get away in canola, like flea beetles and so on, that the new insecticides just can't manage until the canola gets a little bit larger. So we may spray some insecticide first thing in the spring. We also send airplanes down to Quebec to do some spruce budworm spraying. They're gone for a month. And then by about the middle of June, we start spraying potatoes, and we also do some herbicide work typically nowadays it's mainly in pastures and fence lines and that kind of stuff. We used to do a lot of crop spraying, herbicide crop spraying, but the ground sprayers have kind of taken that over, and I'm happy to let them do that. And then by the 1st of July, we're big time into potatoes and wheat and canola fungicides. And that takes us, on a normal year, that would take us till about the 3rd week of July. And then that stops, and then we'll carry on with potatoes right through until the middle to the end of September. And now, as I mentioned earlier, we have this new market that's emerging, I guess, is I don't know if I'd call it desiccating, but drying down canola for the straight cutting canola.
Right, yeah.
So that's a newer market that will start to expand over the next couple of years.
A friend of mine did a story in Saskatchewan with the aerial applicators there. We're together with the Saskatchewan government. They're registering them and maybe training them to get involved in some of the water bombing stuff. Is that something that you could talk about here?
Well, funny you should mention that. We just spent the last 17 years in a what they call a SEAT program, single engine air tanker program, with the province of Manitoba. And it was very successful. We had some people that were very interested in promoting that type of service in Manitoba. Manitoba government has a whole fleet of their own aircraft, Canadair 415s now, which we call water skimmers. They skim along the water and pick up the water. Manitoba is perfect country for that because they have so many lakes. Yeah. But there was a place for the single engine air tanker, and we got on that program in 2000 and just exited that program in 2017. We still do some work for the province, but we had a number of drier years. But during that period, we built up a fantastic business with the province, and I enjoyed it thoroughly, going out and firefighting and protecting communities and forests and that type of thing. It was a very different type of a career for us, but it complemented our aerial spraying. And it was a different branch of our business that I was a little bit sad to let go, but that's not the province's direction anymore. So, but we had a good time doing it. We had bought some very large airplanes, and I got to fly some great airplanes and see the north, and I actually met my wife up north. So
okay, tell me, you know, I took a drones registration course a couple of months ago in Winnipeg, and you know, initially I was going to become I thought a drone pilot, but once I took the course, I had second thoughts about all the kinds of regulations and things, and especially liabilities. So do you have any concerns with the drones flying and getting in the way, or has that never been a problem?
No, we have concerns. We've had a lot of meetings regarding drones, provincially and nationally, and the number of drones that are going to be in Canadian and U.S. airspace over the next number of years is going to grow exponentially.
Totally.
And not all of them will be licensed operators.
No.
In fact, very few of them.
Fraction.
I'll just use an example in the potato industry. That industry employs a lot of independent agronomists come out and scout their crops. And when they do that, the new technology now is to have the drone fly over, and they can take special imagery of the field and see if there's deficiencies, in fertilizer and that kind of thing. So they're flying over the same fields that we're spraying. So we have developed communication with the drone operators, the independent agronomists. If they're flying drones, they'll call us and ask us where we're flying, or they'll call us and tell us where they're going to be flying. I think there needs to be more communication on this because it hasn't reached its full potential yet, and I think we'll probably see in the future that we'll have to have better ways of knowing where these people are going to be. There is a system that's being developed. Technology moves so quickly nowadays. ADS-B is a type of a transponder that allows you to see other things in the air. And my helicopter, for instance, will tell me where there's other aircraft flying that have transponders in them. And these drones, if you get, as the technology gets better and some of the stuff gets cheaper, they'll be able to emit a signal that an airplane with the proper type of transponder will be able to detect and know where they are. So there's going to be changes for sure, and we'll see where that all goes. But there have been some near misses with drones. It could be devastating depending on where it hit the airplane. But it would be like hitting a big bird, I guess.
Pretty well. So, coming to the end of this segment here, and you can tell me if it's off base or not, but you've come a long way, meaning the industry, from when, remember the pictures we saw years ago with the guys sitting in an open cockpit and a helmet, and they called them crop dusters, right?
Yes, yeah.
And boy, just come a long way. Just to explain that for me.
Well, back in the day when this whole industry started, all of those pilots were were from the war, and they needed a job, and that's where this industry evolved from. And all of the airplanes were ex-military airplanes, and a lot of steermans and so on. But now the industry has, we have specialized airplanes that have special safety equipment in them and are designed specifically for the job that we do, and that are designed to be safely flown in the airspace that we're flying in, which is not a normal airspace for a pilot. It's very low to the ground and down in amongst a lot of obstacles and so on. So we have a lot of things there that other pilots don't have to worry about. So all of the changes that we've made, and of course we feel that we're more professional now than back in the day when they had an open cockpit and could breathe in the fumes. A lot of our products nowadays are so safe. They're safer than drinking a cup of coffee, as an example. So the products that we use, the equipment that we use, the training that the pilots have to take. When I started 35 years ago, I did take a spray course, but every airplane that I got in after I took that spray course, I had to teach myself how to fly because it only has one seat in it. Nowadays we have dual seat airplanes. Pilots can go and take transition training to go from one airplane to another. So it's a totally different industry, and the professionalism has gone up immensely over the years. Yeah. So we're very proud of our industry. We have our own insurance fund, as an example, where we insure all of our own aircraft in this fund, and so now we can track all of our accidents, whereas we couldn't when it was with just public insurance. And our accident rates are phenomenally low.
I can see that.
Even though when there is an accident, it seems to get a headline, the number of accidents compared to the number of hours that we fly in a short period of time and the number of acres that we cover is extremely low for any aviation industry.
Anything else you'd like to add?
I think that's good for now.